bring someone with me to a C&P exam, and should I and when I? And I think it's important for us to note at the outset that by saying C&P, we're just referring to compensation and pension examination. That's basically an examination that VA will request when a veteran is either pursuing a new claim, perhaps for an increased rating or service connection sometimes, or they're appealing a previous denial of, again, an increased rating or service connection. Oftentimes VA will send and request that a veteran attend these C&P exams. So the question that we often receive is, can a veteran bring someone with them?
Yes, sometimes.
Yeah.
You certainly can. Whether they go into the examination with you is an entirely different question. And that's going to depend on the examiner that you're seeing, the type of examination you're attending. I think it's common for veterans to want to bring someone. And I generally think it's a good idea. It's supportive, but it's not going to change the outcome of the exam either way, really.
It shouldn't, yeah. And it's not required.
No,
it's
not at all.
Absolutely not required.
But it can be helpful. I mean, I've had times where I can't remember what dose of medication I'm taking, so it might be nice to have someone there to remind me. But
these are inherently stressful situations.
Totally.
Veterans, by and large, it's not applying in every case, but veterans don't like attending these exams oftentimes.
Yep.
Often they feel like they're repetitive of prior exams. They don't want to go. They think they've already submitted all the evidence in the case that they need. VA should just grant. But, VA does require these exams, and they can deny a claim or an appeal if an exam is missed or skipped. So it's important for veterans to attend. If someone like a third party is going to attend an examination with a veteran, usually what I've seen is it's either a spouse, a friend, a fellow veteran sometimes. On rare occasion from what I've seen, it might be a representative. That doesn't happen all that often, but in theory it could.
It's good to have someone there, especially if it will make the examination easier for the veteran. But the examiner might say, no one's coming in.
Yeah.
They might want you to wait in the waiting room, and that's okay. I think that can still be helpful. If you are in the waiting room, you might want to just keep note of what's going on before, because sometimes an examiner is going to make an observation of the veteran while you're in the waiting room. And I've seen this in notes on exams sometimes about, how they're describing how they're moving around the waiting room for maybe like a range of motion analysis. So it might be helpful to keep a note of what you see in the waiting room and then how long the exam lasts. That can be beneficial if you're not allowed to come into the exam room.
Right. And I think, it's really important that whoever you bring, they don't interrupt. They don't try to answer questions for the veteran.
Yes, absolutely.
Really, the examination is for the veteran. They shouldn't be trying to coach the veteran. If they do those things I've seen in exam reports before, it'll be noted sometimes that the person they're with has, tried to steer the conversation in one direction or another. Certainly it's important, I think, to bring somebody to be there to support the veteran and, raise any questions that they intended to ask during the examination, but forgot because of the stress of the event.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they're there to observe. They're not there to coach and participate.
Yeah. And the examiner will catch on if they see that happening.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great point. They can also bring paperwork or documents to help support the veteran. I think a lot of times too, veteran might be concerned about their ability to drive home afterwards, especially if they're having their back or their knees looked at. A lot of times the exams can actually cause a flare-up because it can be painful to test your range of motion. So I think it's good to have someone there if you can, and the examiner says stay in the waiting room, you can still be helpful.
Yes, absolutely.